Are you tired of feeling like you're constantly wrestling with a storm inside your head? Does the weight of worries about your job, your finances, or simply the unpredictable future steal your peace and keep you from truly enjoying your life? If you feel overwhelmed by anxiety and wish there was a way to finally silence that nagging voice of dread, then you're in the right place. For decades, people facing these exact struggles have turned to the timeless wisdom of Dale Carnegie, whose practical, powerful principles for overcoming worry have transformed countless lives. Today, we're diving deep into his most impactful strategies, straight from the man who showed millions how to stop worrying and start living. This isn't just a theoretical discussion. We're sharing actionable steps you can implement immediately to reclaim your mental freedom and redirect your energy towards a life filled with purpose and joy. Every single piece of advice we cover in this video is designed to help you break free from the chains of anxiety. So make sure you stick around for every tip, right through to the end. You won't want to miss a single insight on this journey to a more peaceful existence. If you're ready to leave worry behind and finally start living the life you were meant to, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more content designed to help you thrive. Worry is far more than just an unpleasant emotional state. It is a corrosive force that infiltrates every aspect of our being, silently eroding our health, our happiness, and our ability to function effectively in the world. Its destructive nature is multifaceted, impacting us on physical, mental, emotional, and even social levels. On a physical level, the effects of chronic worry are well documented and deeply concerning. When we worry, our bodies respond as if facing a real physical threat, triggering the fight or flight response. This evolutionary mechanism, designed for short bursts of intense physical exertion, releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline into the bloodstream. While useful in emergencies, the prolonged presence of these hormones due to chronic worry leads to a cascade of negative health consequences. It can cause persistent headaches, muscle tension, digestive issues such as ulcers and irritable bowel syndrome, and can suppress the immune system, making us more susceptible to illness. Chronic worry can also contribute to cardiovascular problems, elevated blood pressure, and sleep disturbances like insomnia, trapping us in a vicious cycle where lack of sleep exacerbates worry, and worry makes it harder to sleep. The physical toll is a direct manifestation of our mental state, a clear signal from our bodies that the internal landscape of worry is having a tangible, damaging impact. Mentally and emotionally, worry creates a fog that obscures clear thinking and stifles creativity. When our minds are preoccupied with fearful what-ifs, our ability to focus on the task at hand diminishes. We become easily distracted, our memory can suffer, and our capacity for complex problem-solving is impaired. Worry drains our mental energy, leaving us feeling exhausted and overwhelmed, even if we haven't engaged in physically demanding activity. It cultivates a negative outlook, making us more prone to pessimism and despair, and can amplify feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. The emotional landscape becomes dominated by fear, anxiety, and sometimes even depression. This constant internal turmoil makes it difficult to experience positive emotions like joy, contentment, or excitement. Socially, worry can lead to withdrawal and isolation. When consumed by our anxieties, we may become less engaged in our relationships, finding it hard to be fully present with others. Our irritability might increase, and our tendency to overthink social interactions can create distance. Worrying about what others think can make us hesitant to connect, leading to loneliness and further exacerbating the cycle of anxiety. Understanding the breadth and depth of this destructive impact is not meant to instill fear, but rather to highlight the urgency and importance of learning to manage and overcome this pervasive habit. It is about recognizing the high price we pay for allowing worry to dominate our lives and motivating ourselves to seek a healthier, more constructive way of being. When confronted with a problem or a crisis that triggers intense worry, the natural, human tendency is often to panic, to feel overwhelmed, and to let the mind race uncontrollably through a myriad of fearful possibilities. However, there is a profoundly effective, almost magic formula, as described by Carnegie, for arresting this descent into panic and channeling your energy towards constructive action. This formula is simple, logical, and incredibly powerful because it forces you to move from vague, debilitating fear to concrete analysis and decisive action. It has 3 distinct steps, which must be followed in sequence for maximum effect. The first step is to ask yourself, what is the absolute worst that can possibly happen as a result of this situation? This requires a conscious effort to confront your deepest fears head-on. Don't shy away from the most dreaded potential outcome. Force yourself to define it clearly and specifically. Write it down if necessary. Often, the vague, undefined fear in our minds is far more terrifying than the reality of the worst possible scenario once it is articulated. By putting a name to your worst fear, you strip it of some of its power. You are looking the monster directly in the eye, and frequently, you will find that the monster is not as formidable as your imagination had made it out to be. This step requires courage, but it is essential for moving forward. The second step, immediately following the first, is to calmly analyze the situation and prepare yourself mentally to accept the worst-case scenario that you have just defined, if necessary. This is a critical step that many people resist. They confuse accepting the worst with giving up. But it is precisely the opposite. By mentally accepting the possibility of the worst, you build a psychological foundation. You say to yourself, okay, if that terrible thing happens, I can survive it. It will be difficult, perhaps devastating, but I will get through it. This act of acceptance is incredibly liberating. It drains the emotional intensity from the potential future event because you are no longer fighting against it in your mind. The energy that was tied up in resisting the possibility of the worst is now freed. This newfound calmness, born from acceptance, allows your mind to function more clearly and rationally. The third step, which you undertake only after completing the first 2, is to then devote all your time and energy to intelligently trying to improve upon the worst-case scenario that you have already calmly accepted. Now that your mind is no longer clouded by panic and resistance, you can think constructively. What steps can you take to mitigate the potential damage? What alternative outcomes are possible? What resources do you have at your disposal? This is the phase of intelligent action. Your energy is channeled into problem-solving and strategizing, not into fearful rumination. You are working from a position of relative calm and acceptance, which makes your efforts far more effective than they would be if you were acting out of panic. This 3-step process, ask, analyze, act, is a powerful tool for dismantling overwhelming worry, transforming it from a paralyzing emotional state into a problem that can be systematically addressed. It forces you to move from hypothetical fear to concrete reality and purposeful engagement with the challenge at hand. One of the most debilitating aspects of chronic worry is its tendency to span across time, pulling our minds from the challenges of today into the potential problems of tomorrow, or dragging us back into the regrets and mistakes of yesterday. This mental time travel creates an overwhelming burden as we attempt to carry the weight of multiple days simultaneously. Dale Carnegie offered a powerful antidote to this, urging us to learn to live in day-tight compartments. This vivid metaphor suggests structuring your life, mentally and emotionally, into distinct segments, each representing a single day. Your task is to live fully and effectively within the confines of today's compartment, sealing off the past and the future. Imagine your life as a magnificent ship traversing the ocean. Historically, ships were built with watertight compartments, so that if one section was breached and filled with water, the damage would be contained and the ship could still stay afloat. Similarly, living in day-tight compartments means constructing mental barriers that prevent the troubles and anxieties of yesterday from flooding into today, and the potential worries of tomorrow from seeping backward and drowning your present peace. The mistakes you made, the opportunities you missed, the hurtful words that were spoken, these belong to yesterday's compartment. You can reflect on them, learn from them, but you must seal them off so they don't contaminate your ability to live today. Likewise, the potential difficulties you might face tomorrow, the deadlines, the difficult conversations, the unexpected challenges, belong to tomorrow's compartment. Planning for tomorrow is wise and necessary, but worrying about it today is a self-inflicted wound. This principle does not advocate for a reckless lack of planning or foresight. It is not about burying your head in the sand and ignoring future responsibilities. Instead, it is about the discipline of focusing your mental and emotional energy on the tasks, challenges, and opportunities that are present today. When you concentrate your efforts on making the most of the current day, you often find that you are better equipped to handle whatever tomorrow brings when it actually arrives. The energy you save by not worrying about tomorrow can be invested in being more productive, more present, and more effective today, which in turn often prevents the very problems you might have worried about. Implementing this requires conscious effort. At the start of each day, make a deliberate decision to live only for that day. What are the priorities for today? What problems need to be solved today? What actions can you take today that align with your goals? Throughout the day, if your mind starts to drift into anxieties about tomorrow or regrets about yesterday, gently but firmly bring it back to the present. Remind yourself that this is today's compartment, and the concerns of other days do not belong here. As the day concludes, acknowledge what you have accomplished and what remains, but then consciously close the compartment on that day's events, preparing to open a new one in the morning. This daily discipline of mental compartmentalization, of living one day at a time, is a powerful practice that can significantly reduce the cumulative burden of worry and allow you to experience the richness and potential contained within each individual day. For many individuals, worry is not merely an occasional reaction to a stressful event. It is a deeply ingrained habit, an automatic response that has been practiced so frequently that it feels like an inseparable part of their personality. Understanding that worry is a habit, rather than an inherent trait or an inescapable fate, is profoundly empowering because it means that, like any other habit, it can be modified or broken. Habits are formed through repetition, creating neural pathways in the brain that make the behavior automatic. The good news is that the brain is capable of forming new pathways, meaning you can consciously build new, more constructive habits that replace the old ones. Breaking the worry habit requires a conscious decision and consistent effort. It begins with awareness, becoming mindful of when and why you worry. What are the triggers? Is it specific situations, certain times of day, or particular people? What are the thoughts and feelings that typically accompany the onset of worry? By observing these patterns without judgment, you gain valuable insight into the mechanics of your own worry habit. Once you identify the pattern, you can begin to interrupt it. This is where you introduce a new, more deliberate response instead of the automatic one. There are several techniques that can be employed to interrupt the worry cycle and begin to build new habits. One simple method is thought stopping. When you catch yourself worrying, mentally or even verbally say stop or not now. This act of interruption can break the momentum of the anxious thoughts. Another technique is to schedule worry time. Designate a specific short period each day, perhaps 15 to 20 minutes, during which you are allowed to worry about anything that is on your mind. If a worry arises outside of this time, consciously postpone it until your scheduled worry time. Often, when the designated time arrives, the worry doesn't feel as intense or important, or you may find that you can address it more rationally. This takes the power away from the worry by controlling when and where it occupies your mind. Building new habits also involves replacing the old behavior with a more positive one. When you interrupt a worry, what will you do instead? You could redirect your attention to a productive task, engage in a calming activity like deep breathing or meditation, or focus on something you are grateful for. The key is consistency. The more you practice the new response, the stronger the new neural pathways become, and the weaker the old worry habit becomes. It's like forging a new path through a forest. The more you walk the new path, the clearer and easier it becomes, while the old, overgrown path fades away. Breaking the worry habit is not a single event, but an ongoing process of conscious choice and consistent practice, leading towards a mental landscape where peace and constructive thinking become the default rather than chronic anxiety. Business and financial worries are among the most common and persistent anxieties people face. Concerns about job security, income, investments, and the myriad challenges of running a business can weigh heavily on the mind. However, Many of these worries can be significantly reduced, if not entirely eliminated, by adopting a systematic, fact-based approach championed by Carnegie. The root of much business worry lies in uncertainty and indecision, allowing vague fears to take the place of concrete reality. When a business problem or financial concern arises that triggers worry, the first crucial step is to resist the urge to panic and instead commit to gathering all the relevant facts objectively. This means moving beyond assumptions, rumors, and emotional interpretations. What are the verifiable details of the situation? What are the numbers? What are the policies? What are the external factors at play? Seek out reliable information from credible sources. Talk to people who have direct knowledge of the situation. Write down the facts as you uncover them, organizing them clearly. Often, the process of simply laying out the facts can demystify the problem and reveal that the situation is less dire or more manageable than initially feared. Worry thrives in ambiguity. Facts bring clarity and reduce the breeding ground for unfounded anxieties. Once you have diligently gathered the facts, the next step is to analyze them carefully and dispassionately. What do the facts tell you about the nature of the problem? What are the potential causes and consequences? More importantly, what are the possible courses of action you can take based on the information you have? Brainstorm different solutions or strategies. Evaluate the potential outcomes of each option, considering both the upside and the downside. This analytical phase requires clear thinking, free from the emotional fog of worry. By systematically examining the facts and potential solutions, you transition from a state of passive worrying to one of active engagement with the problem. The final and often most challenging step is to make a decision. Based on your analysis of the facts, choose the course of action that seems most logical and likely to lead to the best possible outcome. Indecision is a major source of business worry. The constant back and forth in your mind, the weighing of options without committing to one, drains energy and prolongs anxiety. Once you have made a decision, commit to it fully. This doesn't mean it will be easy or that there won't be challenges in implementing it, but the act of deciding itself is incredibly powerful in reducing worry. By making a conscious choice based on the best available information, you move from a state of uncertainty to one of purposeful action. After making the decision, dedicate your energy to executing the plan, rather than second-guessing yourself or continuing to worry about the alternatives. This structured approach, moving from fact-finding to analysis to decision to decisive action, is a highly effective method for dismantling business and financial worries and channeling your energy into productive problem-solving. There is a profound and often overlooked connection between our physical state and our mental susceptibility to worry. Fatigue, both physical and mental, significantly erodes our resilience and makes us far more vulnerable to the grip of anxiety. When we are tired, our ability to think clearly, maintain perspective, and manage our emotions is diminished. Small problems can seem insurmountable, challenges feel overwhelming, and negative thoughts gain a stronger foothold in our minds. Conversely, being well rested and having sufficient energy provides a crucial buffer against worry. It enhances our capacity to cope with stress, improves our mood, and allows us to approach difficulties with a more positive and proactive mindset. Carnegie recognized that preventing fatigue was a vital strategy for preventing worry. This is not just about getting enough sleep, although that is foundational, but also about managing your energy throughout the day and learning to relax effectively. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a biological necessity that is essential for both physical and mental restoration. Chronic sleep deprivation impairs cognitive function, increases irritability, and significantly elevates stress levels, creating a fertile ground for worry to take root. Aim for consistent, quality sleep, establishing a regular sleep schedule, and creating a relaxing bedtime routine. Avoid stimulating activities, caffeine, and heavy meals close to bedtime. Beyond sufficient sleep, it's crucial to manage your energy levels throughout the waking hours. This involves taking regular breaks, even short ones, before you reach a state of exhaustion. Don't try to power through hours of intense work without pause. Step away from your tasks periodically to stretch, walk around, or simply rest your eyes. These micro breaks help to refresh your mind and prevent mental fatigue from accumulating. The type of break matters too. Engaging in a completely different activity can be more restorative than simply continuing to think about your work. Learning. Techniques for intentional relaxation is also key. Worry often manifests as physical tension, tight muscles, clenched jaw, shallow breathing. By consciously practicing relaxation techniques, you can counter these physical symptoms and break the link between stress and muscle tension. Deep breathing exercises are simple yet incredibly effective. Taking slow, deep breaths signals to your nervous system that you are safe and can help to calm the physiological stress response. Progressive muscle relaxation, where you tense and then release different muscle groups in your body, can also help to release accumulated tension. Short periods of meditation or mindfulness can train your mind to be present and less reactive to stressful thoughts. By prioritizing rest, managing your energy throughout the day, and actively practicing relaxation techniques, you build a strong physical and mental foundation that significantly reduces your susceptibility to worry, allowing you to face life's challenges with greater vitality and composure. A significant, often hidden source of worry stems from the internal conflict that arises when we try to be someone we are not. In a world that constantly bombards us with images and expectations of how we should be, it's easy to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others, striving to fit a mold that doesn't align with our authentic nature. This striving creates a perpetual state of anxiety, the worry that we are not good enough, that we are failing to live up to external standards, or that others will discover the real us and reject us. Worrying about what others think, or trying to gain approval by conforming to expectations, is a draining and ultimately futile endeavor that breeds insecurity and self-doubt. Finding yourself and having the courage to be yourself is a powerful step towards alleviating much of this worry. It involves a journey of self-discovery, understanding your own values, strengths, passions, and limitations. What is truly important to you, independent of what society or others deem valuable? What are your natural talents and abilities? What activities bring you genuine joy and energy? This process of self-exploration requires introspection, honesty, and the willingness to look beyond external validation. It might involve trying new things, reflecting on past experiences, and paying attention to what truly resonates with you. Once you have a clearer understanding of who you are, the next step is to cultivate the courage to express that authentic self in the world. This doesn't mean being reckless or insensitive to others, but rather living in alignment with your core values and expressing your true personality and beliefs. When you are being authentic, you reduce the need for pretense and performance, which are significant sources of anxiety. You are no longer constantly worrying about maintaining a false image or fearing exposure. Instead, you operate from a place of integrity and self-acceptance. Embracing your authenticity also shifts your focus inward. Instead of worrying about external approval, you become more concerned with living a life that is true to yourself. This doesn't mean you won't face challenges or criticism, but you will be better equipped to handle them because your sense of self-worth is derived from within, rather than from external opinions. Being yourself is not about being perfect. It's about being real. It is a continuous process of self-discovery and self-acceptance, a journey that liberates vast amounts of energy previously consumed by worry about external validation and comparison, allowing you to direct that energy towards living a life that is genuinely fulfilling and free from the constant burden of trying to be someone you are not. Criticism is an inevitable part of life. Whether it comes from a boss, a colleague, a friend, family, or even a stranger, negative feedback or judgment can be a painful experience. The natural inclination is often to dwell on it, to replay the words in our minds, to feel hurt, angry, or defensive, and to worry about what the criticism implies about us or our future. However, worrying about past criticism is one of the most unproductive and damaging forms of anxiety. The event has already occurred, the words have been spoken, and no amount of worry or rumination can alter what has happened. Dwelling on past. Criticism is akin to trying to change history, a futile endeavor that only serves to inflict pain in the present. Carnegie wisely pointed out the unwisdom of allowing past criticism to consume our thoughts. Instead of worrying, he advocated for a more constructive approach. Analyze the criticism objectively. This requires stepping back from the emotional reaction and examining the feedback dispassionately. Is there any truth to the criticism? Is there a valid point being made, even if it was delivered poorly? If so, try to learn from it. View it as an opportunity for growth and improvement. Taking valuable feedback and using it to make positive changes is a productive response that transforms a potentially negative experience into a stepping stone for personal development. However, it is also important to recognize that not all criticism is valid or constructive. Sometimes criticism stems from the other person's own issues, biases, or misunderstandings. Unfair or baseless criticism should be acknowledged as such and then consciously dismissed. Do not allow someone else's negativity or poor judgment to take root in your mind and breed worry. Develop a discerning filter for criticism, absorbing what is useful and letting go of what is not. Furthermore, understand that a certain amount of criticism is simply unavoidable, especially if you are taking action and putting yourself out there. As the old saying goes, the only way to avoid criticism is to do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. If you are living a life of purpose and making an impact, you will inevitably face some form of criticism. Learning to accept this as a natural part of the process, rather than worrying about it, is crucial. Reclaim your self-worth from the opinions of others. Your value is not determined by whether everyone approves of you or your actions. By analyzing criticism objectively, learning from what is useful, dismissing what is not, and accepting that criticism is a part of life, you can free yourself from the burdensome and unproductive worry associated with past judgments. One of the most immediate and practical antidotes to worry is purposeful activity. When your mind is actively engaged in a task, particularly one that requires focus and concentration, there is simply less mental space available for worries to occupy. Keeping busy is not about using activity as a form of avoidance to indefinitely postpone dealing with problems, but rather as a powerful tool to interrupt the cycle of rumination and redirect your energy into something constructive. Worry thrives in idleness and undirected thought. When your mind is not actively engaged, it tends to wander, often gravitating towards anxieties and hypothetical problems. Productive activity, on the other hand, demands your attention. Whether it's working on a project, pursuing a hobby, helping someone else, or engaging in physical exercise, immersing yourself in an activity forces your focus onto the present moment and the task at hand. This active engagement breaks the passive cycle of worrying, where you are simply replaying fearful scenarios in your head without taking any action. The kind of activity matters. Engaging in something that is meaningful or enjoyable to you is often more effective than simply doing something for the sake of being busy. Choose activities that challenge you, utilize your skills, or bring you a sense of satisfaction. This purposeful engagement not only distracts from worry, but also generates positive feelings of accomplishment and competence, which further counteract anxiety and self-doubt. Keeping busy also provides a sense of control. When you are worrying, you often feel powerless over the situation causing your anxiety. Taking action, even on something unrelated to the source of your worry, restores a sense of agency and effectiveness. It demonstrates to yourself that you are capable of taking action and making things happen, which can be incredibly empowering in the face of feeling overwhelmed by worry. Momentum generated by purposeful activity also helps to counteract the inertia that worry can create. When you are feeling anxious, it can be difficult to start anything, but once you begin engaging in an activity, the momentum can carry you forward, pulling you out of the stagnant state of worry. So, when you feel worry starting to take hold, actively choose to engage in a purposeful activity. Throw yourself into it wholeheartedly, focusing your attention entirely on the task at hand, and experience the power of action to displace anxiety. One common source of distress and worry arises when we do things for others, provide help, offer support, give gifts, or make sacrifices, and then feel hurt or resentful when our efforts are not met with the gratitude we expected. We worry about whether our kindness was appreciated, whether we were taken advantage of, or whether the other person values the relationship as much as we do. This expectation of gratitude, while understandable, can be a significant source of unnecessary worry and disappointment. Carnegie offered a simple yet profound piece of advice regarding this. Expect ingratitude. This isn't a cynical view of human nature, but a realistic one. It's about understanding that gratitude is not a universal response, and that people often have their own preoccupations, forgetfulness, or simply different ways of expressing appreciation. By adjusting your expectations, you can significantly reduce the potential for hurt and worry. When you do something kind for someone, do it because you want to, because it aligns with your values, or because it brings you personal satisfaction. Do it for the act itself, not for the anticipated return of gratitude. If gratitude comes, receive it with pleasure. If it doesn't, don't allow the lack of it to become a source of worry or resentment. Their response is about them, not about the inherent value of your action. This principle is particularly important in relationships, both personal and professional. While mutual appreciation is vital for healthy connections, constantly keeping score of who has done what for whom and worrying about perceived imbalances in gratitude can be incredibly draining and damaging to the relationship itself. Instead of worrying about whether others are sufficiently grateful, focus on your own actions and intentions. Are you acting in accordance with your values? Are you giving freely without strings attached? By expecting ingratitude, you prepare yourself mentally and reduce the sting of potential disappointment. This doesn't mean you become hard-hearted or stop doing good deeds. It means you shift your motivation from seeking external validation through gratitude to finding intrinsic satisfaction in your own generosity and kindness. This shift in perspective liberates you from a significant source of worry, allowing you to give freely and genuinely without being burdened by expectations about the response you will receive. It enables you to focus on the positive impact of your actions, rather than worrying about the reactions of others. The journey from being consumed by worry to truly living a life of purpose and presence is a profound transformation, one that is entirely within your reach. As we have explored, worry is not an inescapable destiny, but often a deeply ingrained habit, a mental pattern that can be understood, challenged, and ultimately replaced with more constructive ways of responding to life's inevitable challenges and uncertainties. We have delved into powerful, time-tested principles inspired by the practical wisdom of Dale Carnegie that offer a clear roadmap for navigating this path. These principles are not abstract theories. They are practical tools that require consistent practice and application in your daily life. They are not a one-time cure, but a new way of living, a new approach to facing challenges. Implementing these strategies may require effort and persistence, particularly at first, as you work to break old habits and form new ones. There will be times when worry attempts to creep back in when faced with unexpected difficulties or moments of vulnerability. But with consistent practice, these principles will become more natural, more automatic, gradually reshaping your mental landscape and your emotional responses. The ultimate reward for this effort is not just a reduction in worry, but the profound freedom and vitality that comes from living a life actively engaged with the present moment. It is about reclaiming your mental energy and directing it towards creating, connecting, and contributing. It is about experiencing the richness of life as it unfolds, rather than viewing it through the distorting lens of anxiety. It is about building resilience, cultivating inner peace, and unlocking your full potential. The wisdom is available, the tools are at hand, and the path is clear. The choice is yours. Continue to be held captive by worry, or take the courageous steps towards a life of greater peace, purpose, and joy. Begin today, in this very moment, to avoid worry and truly start to live.